I wasted over 40 years trying to figure out what my purpose is, and I'm going to share that with you in 5 easy lessons. I spent decades trying to figure out what my purpose is, trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do in life. So let's connect video 5, which is the one where we did all that ikigai, where you figured out what your purpose was. Let's tie that with this video right now. So lesson number 1 is that the ego is not our final destination, but it did help us in our early years to develop ourselves. I have this belief that we come from spirit where everything was all of one. And we come to a place of separation and individuality. And by that case, we are given an ego in order for us to look at others and look at other situations by making contrasts of that and determining how we want to act, how we want to live. What is the purpose of our life? So this is a matter of contrasting and comparing yourself with others. That's what the ego life is all about. So lesson 1 talks about the fact that we come to this place having an ego, which is fine, uh, and it helps us to deal with growing up. But at some point, we have to change, and that's what lesson number 2 is. Lesson number 2 is that our lives should be about expressing who we are inside rather than trying to impress other people. The problem with the ego is that throughout life, although it helped us when we were young, as we grew up, we get in this place where we compete with others, we compare ourselves with others, and by that way, it works to our detriment on our self-worth. Because, well, let me put it this way. Have you heard of someone saying something like, how come John at work is making more money than me? I mean, I do the same amount of work as him. Why am I not getting paid as much? In the last video, I talked about the car. It's like you want to bring home the car, the fancy car that you just bought to show it off, and it's got 84 payments, and so you don't really own it, but you want to park it out in the driveway just to show it off to the neighbors. This is what I'm talking about, impressing people rather than expressing who you are inside. So lesson 3 is all about saying that your purpose is not based on other people's expectations. And this is the point I brought up at the very beginning. Many of us go through life, I did for a long time, following what I thought my parents wanted me to do. It wasn't, because I had no idea what I wanted to do in the very beginning. So I would follow that. And some of us get caught in that. And so we live this life forever in that. However, I took a turn at some point in my life after working with my dad in business, and I told him I was going to leave. I was going to do something else. And I was thinking that I really hurt him. But it's funny because 20 years later, I was riding in the car with him, and I apologized again for that fact. I had returned back to the city that I was born in, and we were riding around, and I told him, I said, hey, Dad, I'm so sorry that I had left because he had to close down the business. And he actually told me, he said, I've forgotten about that long time ago. He said, just forget it. It's not that important. Don't even care about that. I'm glad you're doing something that you love to do. And so That's the thing, is that we get caught up in these ideals of someone else's expectations of what our purpose is, and that's not right. So lesson 4 is to allow you to stop hiding and to create an identity. Stop hiding from others and stop hiding from yourself, because creating a new identity is the key in most cases for manifestation. If you want to bring forth whatever you want in life, you have to change the person that you are. So many people talk about this, and it's clear. It's not a bunch of affirmations. It's not a bunch of positive thoughts. It is actually figuring out what you want to do in life, figuring out what that kind of person needs to be like, and changing your identity. And so the other part of the thing is about stop hiding. I spent years during my high school and grade school and junior high kind of hiding out. I didn't want to excel because I didn't want other people to notice me. And yet I did things that would go against that. I'll give you one silly example. When I was 15, first year as a sophomore in high school, a friend of mine and I went skydiving. And this was way before you needed parents' signature to do this. And I actually landed wrong, and I ended up wearing a cast uh, on the Monday for the school. So here I was trying to keep a low profile, and at the same time, I ended up everybody's asking me, well, how did you get the cast? So for many of you that have wondering, no, I didn't get any extra dates on that, but it was kind of funny. Well, you could see that although I wanted to keep my head down, there was another part of me that wanted to be different. So lesson 5 basically says that competition doesn't create a meaningful life. However, when we do things on purpose, this is when we gain worthiness for ourselves through gratitude of others. And this is really an important issue because my book, Abundant Soul, Abundant Life, talks about the fact about worthiness as an important part of life. I don't really believe in forgiveness. We'll cover that later in later videos, but I believe that when we have higher self-esteem, more worthiness, our container that's in our internal container, whether it be a money container or whatever, starts to grow. And at this point, this is where you demand more. You demand more happiness, you demand more money, and you demand especially more love. And self-worth and those kind of things only come when you start to love yourself. That is the one first step that has to be taken. Take out your roadmap and your journal and go ahead and work through the exercises that I talk about in the roadmap for video 6. If you haven't done your Ikigai, make sure you have that done before you do this. And then make sure you journal. I've said this time and time again. Journaling is one of the most important things that you can go ahead and do. It often brings to light so many things that you would have never thought about alone. I believe that it has a connection to spirit. And then I want you to look at one thread of purpose for yourself over the next few months. You don't have to have something that's going to be permanently there, but just pick one that you believe that is closest to your heart right now and explore that. Write about that. Think about that. See how that identity can flourish within you and see how you feel about that. This is an ongoing process that we're working on. So those are the 5 lessons that I learned, and I hope it helps. Please go ahead and use the link down in the video to download your free Abundant Soul roadmap. And please comment on the video if you so wish to. If you have any questions, please do so. I'll be happy to answer all of them. And so we'll see you next time on the next video. Thank you.